Hello, I'm Christopher from Learnry, and in this video we are going to learn about variables in Python. So by the end of this video you will know everything about variables, like what a variable is, why use a variable, how to create a variable naming rules, how to assign a value to a variable, and more. Now let's start off with what a variable is. So a variable is a named location that is used to store data in the memory of a computer for use later. It is helpful to think of a variable as a container that holds data, and whatever data in the container can be changed later if need be. Now the next question is, why use a variable? So in programming, we are always trying to build a structure that will process information and data. Now this structure consists of source codes written using programming languages. So for example, a classroom attendance system. So variables are needed to ensure that the structure does not become irrelevant when values change. For example, in an attendance system, date and time will always change, but the change must not affect the functionality of the system, because if it does, it will decrease the usability of the attendance system. So this is why variables are used, so that even when values change for various purposes and reasons, the structure or the system can still work. Now let's talk about how to create a variable. So in Python, a variable is usually created the moment you first assign a value to it. Python variables do not need to be declared with any particular type and can even change type after they have been set. String variables can be declared either by using the single or double quotes. Now let's take a look at some variable naming rules. So a variable can have a short name like X and Y, or a more descriptive name like age, car name, and total volume. But a few rules must be followed when choosing names for variables. So these rules include: a variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. A variable name cannot start with a number. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and the underscore. Variable names in Python are case sensitive, which means that if you have a variable that is made up of all lowercase and you refer to that same variable using uppercase letters later on in your program, Python is going to throw an error, because we have just said that variable names in Python are case sensitive. Now finally, let's take a look at how to output the values stored inside variables. So the Python print statement is often used to output or print out the values of variables. Now to combine both text and a variable, Python uses the plus character. You can also use the plus character to add the value stored in one variable to the value stored in yet another variable. So for numbers, the plus character works as a mathematical operator, that is the addition sign. Okay, so as always, I have my command prompt interface open on the left hand side, and on the right hand side I have my Visual Studio Code editor opened. So on my desktop, I have gone ahead and, as usual, I've created a folder with the name of Python tutorials, and inside the folder I have created a new file with the name of test.py. So as you can see, the file is currently empty. What I've also done in my command prompt interface is that I have gone ahead and navigated to the desktop of the computer and also navigated my way to the Python tutorials folder so that I can have access to the Python file I have gone ahead and created already. Alright, we are going to talk about variables. Now we said that a variable is a named location inside the computer's memory. So variables are basically a way of storing values for use later in the life cycle of the programs that we develop. So how do we declare variables, or in other words, how do we create variables in Python? So in order for us to create a variable in Python, we basically have to have a name for the variable and also have a value that we want to store in the variable. So let's go into our Visual Studio Code editor, and I am going to click on this particular icon here to hide the sidebar so we can have more room to write code. So let's go ahead and create a variable, and we are going to call the variable fName, which is going to be short for first name. So now that we have a name for our variable, the next thing we are going to do is to have an assignment operator. So an assignment operator is what tells the Python interpreter that we are going to pick a piece of data and assign it to a variable, or we are going to pick a piece of data and store it inside a variable. So I'm going to say equal to, which is our assignment operator. And on the right hand side of our assignment operator, we are going to have any value at all that we want to store in the variable. So I'm going to say bill, and we are going to save this. So we have just created a new variable. The name of the variable is fname. The value inside the variable is bill. Let's create another variable. We are going to call it age. We are going to assign it the value of, let's say, 23 years. Now let's create our third variable. We are going to call it number 1, and we are going to assign it the value of 234, and we're going to save all this. So we have succeeded in creating 3 variables. The first variable has the name of fname and it has a value of bill. Our second variable has the name of age and also has the value of 23 years. And then our third variable has the name of number 1 and it also has the value of 234. So this is how we create variables in Python. Now, before we take a look at how to output the values that are stored in variables, which we have seen by the way already, let's go ahead and then we are going to take a look at some rules that govern the kinds of names we can give to our variables. Now, the first rule is that a variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. So you cannot start a variable name using a number, but you can start a variable name using either a letter or the underscore. So for example, I could say age, and you can see Python is not complaining about this. So let's give it a value of, let's say, 30. Now let's try starting this same age with a number. So I'm going to say 80 and I'm going to write age. Now you can see that the whole thing has been painted red, meaning that this particular name is not acceptable. If I take out this 80 and I write it after the age, so I'm going to cut this and I'm going to write it after the age. Now this is a valid Python variable name because the name starts with an alphabet. So that's the first thing you must remember about naming your variables. The names of your variables must start with either a letter, that is the English alphabets, or the underscore character. Now the second thing I want you to remember when naming your variables is that a variable name cannot start with a number. We spoke about this already. So for example, when we try doing 80 age, so if we do 80 and then age, you can see that the Python interpreter is complaining to us that it won't allow us to use this particular variable name. So you cannot start the name of your variable using a number. Now the third thing you must remember is that a variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and the underscore. So the last thing I want you to remember when naming your variables is that the names that we give to variables in Python is case sensitive. And what that means is this. So if we create a variable with the name of age and we give it the value of 40, and we also create another variable with the name of age and we give it the value of, let's say, 50, what it means is this variable here, which is made up of all small letters, is different from this second variable here, which starts with a capital A, which is also different from this third variable, which is made up of all capital letters. So when creating variables, you have to be very careful because if you create 2 variables and one has a capital letter and the other one is made up of all small letters, even though they have the same names as in the way you pronounce the name, but because of the case sensitive nature of the names of variables in Python, the Python interpreter is going to treat the 2 variables as 2 different variables. So you have to take notice of these 3 rules. That 1, a variable name must always start with a letter or the underscore character. 2, a variable name cannot start with a number. And then 3, that variable names are case sensitive. And so when declaring variables, you have to be very careful as to how you structure the name of that particular variable. So now that we know how to create variables, I'm just going to clear all these ones here. And we are going to take a look at how to display the value in a variable. So in Python, we have a function called the print function, which we can basically use to display information in our command prompt. So before we try the print function, let's go ahead and we're going to run this Python file and see what it does currently. So I'm going to go to my command prompt and we're going to do Python, and then we're going to pass the argument of test.py and we hit enter. So we can see that nothing was displayed in the command prompt because we have 3 variables, but we are not doing anything with the data that is stored in those variables. So now let's try and do something with it. And we are going to do something like displaying the values in the command prompt. So we are going to do that using the print function. So I'm going to say print. And basically we are going to refer to the names of the variables and not the values stored in them. I'm going to copy this fname variable and I'm going to paste it inside my print function. And so when I save this and go back to my command prompt, press the up arrow key once, hit enter, you can see that now the print function basically went and searched for the variable with the name of fname and simply got hold of the value in that particular variable and printed it in the command prompt interface. So I could do something like this, or I can take out the fname and I can copy the age variable name, paste it in our print function, save the file, go back to the command prompt interface, press the up arrow key once, hit enter, and now you can see that we basically were able to print the value of the age variable. So this is how we're able to output values stored inside variables. So let us say that we want to print the values of fname and also age at the same time. Now we can make use of the plus sign. So I can say fname and then I'll say plus, then I'll say age. So let's save all this, go back to our command prompt, press the up arrow key once, hit enter. Now you can see we have Bill 23 years, but this is not very meaningful. So let's add some flair to it. So I'm going to use another plus sign here and I'm going to have a string here that says space is, and then we're going to have another space. So let's save all this. So what I'm doing is I am going to pick whatever value is stored in the fname variable and I am going to replace it here, and then I'm going to print the whole of this string, and I'm also going to pick the variable with the name of age and I'm going to get hold of the value and then replace it with the age. So let's save our file, go back to our command prompt interface, press the up arrow key once, hit enter. Now you can see we have Bill is 23 years. So that is how to print out or display the values of two or more variables using the plus sign. So I hope you have learned how to create variables in Python and also how to assign values to variables. We also spoke about some of the rules that govern the naming of variables in Python. And finally, we spoke about how to output the values of variables and also even how to print out the values of two or more variables. So the question of the day is, where are variables stored in a computer when you create them? You can leave your answer in the comment section below. Okay, so if you are new to this channel and found this video helpful, then click on the subscribe button and the bell notification icon below so that you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.